All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Bulletproof Mindset. I feel like I am one of these old-fashioned singers. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll get what I'm saying. If you're watching on Spotify or listening on Spotify, maybe tune in because you'll get what I mean. But we have a new setup today, and today we're talking about hybrid training, the pros and cons of it. Should you be doing it? Is it a hype? Is it a phase that may disappear? I don't think so. It is here to stay, and here to stay for the better. So I'm actually excited that more people are training hybrid, but there is some cons that you might want to consider. Now, before we get into today's conversation, look, real quick, if you're new around here, every Monday and Thursday there is a new episode that will get released. Thursday episodes are becoming a theme of me interviewing the great minds of the fitness space and just like small business owners. If you have a guest recommendation of who you want to see on the podcast, then drop me a little message on Instagram. You can follow the podcast page or send a message there at bulletproof mindset __, or you can send me one on my coaching page, which is at Coach Crossar. That is CROSSAR. So, with that being said, enjoy today's episode. Here's two statements that give off the same energy. Have you ever heard of the phrase that I don't want to lift weights because I don't want to be too big and bulky? Well, the opposite side of that is a lot of people don't like to do endurance or long distance running because they don't want to be small and frail. And both are complete extremes of each other. And it goes into what we're talking about today, which is hybrid training. It is the new hype. If you don't know what it is, then hopefully off the back of today's episode, you'll have a better idea and you'll probably make a decision if it's going to be something that you're going to try out for yourself. And I'm going to go into some pros and cons of the training as a whole, give you some of my thoughts on it and what my training and experience has been like for it. Now, first things first, let's address the new format. If you're watching on Spotify or on YouTube, you'll see that it's a wee change of scenery. I'm hoping I look clearer on the lens because I got a new lens for the camera. I got a new standing desk. It's actually a breakfast desk. And backstory, I was about to buy this from IKEA for £250. And look, it's class, good size. I was like, okay, I'm hiring out the podcast studio. This will be a nice new setup I can bring into play. And I was like, I'll go on Facebook Marketplace just to see what's out there. And lo and behold, this desk was for sale and a woman kindly gave it to me for £40. It's got a couple of wee scratches here and there, but hey, I'm a sucker for a bargain. But we'll see if this is the new style I'm going to go with. I'm reading a lot of things just now about posture, and this is completely sidetracked. Maybe I'll do an actual episode on this, but Brian Johnston was talking about it in the episode he done with Stephen Bartlett, and he was sitting upright, and Stephen Bartlett mentioned about his posture, how it was so good, and he mentioned the blood flow to the brain and all this sort of things. And I've been going like deep diving into kind of research and just looking to learn more about cognitive performance, brain performance, all that sort of things. And a common thing that does come up is standing upright, talking, like not being slouched when you talk, your actual overall posture. And there's also many different things that comes into play. Strength training, believe it or not, helps us keep this more upright posture if we train in the right way. Another wee side note, that's why I love shrugs. People fucking love to hate on shrugs, but shrugs is a great exercise for actually not pulling your posture back, but just strengthening the muscles on the upper part of your back. There's also a ton of different exercises that you can do. But yeah, we'll see how this feels. I feel like Mark Bell, he does the standing podcast side of things, and I don't know, I kind of like it. Don't get me wrong. Done a 10k this morning, so my legs are a little bit tired. But that brings me nicely on to hybrid training. Hybrid is the new, I wouldn't say new, it's a buzzword that's coming around more and more. I'm seeing more people doing it, and I feel like CrossFit was taking off, and there was a camp for CrossFit, and then there was a camp against it. Now that sort of, I don't know if it's getting more popular or it's just sort of staying the same, but what more and more people are doing is training like a hybrid style of training. For the purpose of today's episode, I'm going to exclude the athlete side of things. Hybrid athlete is a completely separate topic, and I'll probably touch on some elements, but I'm going to do a deep dive on what that looks like if that is something that you're interested in, and some things to consider. You would have heard me say a number of times in the podcast, any high-performing individual in the sports scene, whether that is MMA or whether it is a professional football player, I would make the argument to be at the top level of your game, for us average Jill and Joes to try and insert ourselves into that arena of performance, it would actually be an unhealthy thing for us to do, because one, we don't get paid off it, we have no desire to compete in it, and this is a kind of problem with the athlete side of things. However, we'll park that to one side, and we'll move on to diving into some pros and cons of what the hell is hybrid training to begin with. Now, the more I'm in this whole fitness space, the more I actually kind of laugh at myself and my old opinions and coming full circle and then seeing other people's opinions. And right now there is a hatred? I guess it is. It's like a bit of a jealousy statement that you see from people that, just because you lift weights and fucking run doesn't mean you're a hybrid athlete, or you're training hybrid. And it's funny seeing that, because there was an opinion, maybe not that opinion, but that's how I used to approach some things that I wouldn't say I was jealous of, but I had no experience on, and I just made a judgment call instead of experience it firsthand, then actually looking at it from a bird's eye view, from a coach's perspective, and then trying to communicate my actual thoughts and feelings to it. So how do we address what hybrid training is, first of all? Now, again, this is where, without trying to confuse this any further, you can ask 5 different coaches in different spaces, and you could potentially get 5 different answers. You've got one extreme, which is people looking to do the ultra endurance side of things, like your marathons, and then at the same time they're trying to PB on squats and deadlifts, or lift crazy amount of weight and then run crazy amount of distances. There's a chap called Fergus Crawley. He has done a numerous amount of different, I guess, hybrid protocols of really kind of chasing the extreme end of quote-unquote hybrid performance. So that's like one little category. Another category is generally people doing back and biceps on a Monday, running on a Tuesday, legs and abs on a Wednesday, and then running on a Thursday. And again, they are posting content saying this is my hybrid training split. But to simply break it down through watching a numerous amount of videos on this, from hybrid athletes to coaches that coach hybrid training, it ultimately comes down to this simple thing. It is a broad spectrum of 2 opposing training stimuluses. It's as simple as that. So you would have heard me on the last episode speaking about running, and then also strength training, and how that's 2 different kind of mixed signals kind of sent to the body. Well, this is really what hybrid style is. Now, it's funny, if you look up hybrid, if you type in hybrid training, the sort of internet is lagging behind a little bit, because what you get hit with is like, hybrid is working from home and working in the office, and it really, that is a nice way to think of it. It's a nice little analogy. So it's combining 2 different stimuluses, 2 different training styles into one. And this is where the sort of new hype's coming from. And in all honesty, it's coming off the back of these events, like the High Rocks side of things, which is going on, hence probably why they called it High Rocks. Interesting, I wonder why they called it High Rocks. That might be a thing I need to search up, look into to see where that came from. But events like High Rocks, where there's a combination of endurance and there's an element of strength training, kind of bring to light this need to train a little bit differently. You can't train like a bodybuilder and expect to do well in High Rocks. Arguably, you could train like a runner and you would still do well in High Rocks, but you get the idea. There's other events like Athex, which is more strength and conditioning part to the start of it. Then there's an endurance part. Then there's a Metcon, so it's like a blend of kind of low level CrossFit elements to it, and it also has the strength component. So ultimately, that's what it comes down to. And that broad spectrum is the reason why you can get so many different answers as to what the hell it is. But when you break it down, you could be someone that has a love for bodybuilding, but also has a love for that runner's high that you get. So you have combined them both. That is hybrid. You could be someone that is in the high performance category that likes to do ultra marathons, but also likes to pull up PB, their pull-ups, their deadlifts, their squats. And again, you are considered as or training as a hybrid person. Now, this is where the hybrid athlete comes into play. That kind of pushes the boundaries of what is achievable when it comes to performance. And yeah, I'll leave a lot of my thoughts on that to another episode. But bringing it back to this, that people can be really, really dogmatic on what the hell hybrid is. And ultimately, if you're doing two different stimuluses, yeah, you can call that hybrid training. Now, there's a bunch of pros and cons to get into on things to consider. But see, if you are someone that does consider themselves as doing a hybrid training split, and you're getting a little bit kind of put off by people slagging it or people saying that that's not hybrid, see, at the end of the day, see, whatever you're doing it for you. And that's really what you want to bring it back to. And I'm going to go through pros and cons. And this is from a purpose of, I want you to think about pros and cons when you're doing any sort of training modality. So when I'm running through the pros and cons of this sort of style of training, or just hybrid training as a whole, don't take it as the kind of be all and end all. I just want to bring awareness to some things that you might not consider. And at the end of the day, like, see if you genuinely love it, fucking do it. Do not let anyone hold you back or anyone's opinion stop you from doing something. Hybrid training might be you combining calisthenics, one of the three, with mobility training, or combining calisthenics with bodybuilding, because you have a love for both of them. Now, this is where you can have opinions on it, and it's just, at the end of the day, see if you love it, just do it. That's simply what it comes down to. And see if you're performing better and better at it. So you'll have goals set, like maybe an aesthetic goal, or maybe you have a performance-based goal. Then you're going to want to feel your best while doing it. And then if you achieve the goal, then here, that's all that matters. So let's start with the pros. The first one I've written down here, that overall it is a balanced approach to health and longevity if done right. Now hear me out on this one. So one thing I've certainly made a mistake of in the past was being in that mindset of, you know what, if I do a lot of endurance, if I do a lot of running, then I'm not going to be able to build as much muscle as I want. And my goal is to build muscle. I want to be a bodybuilder. I love that style of training. So having that biased view, I eliminated all sorts of cardio up until my prep, or up until I went on competed in a show. And really what I've missed out on is a lot of the kind of health and longevity benefits of endurance training. So I had binned it completely. I had lost 7 years of my life where I just decided not to do it. In the previous episode, I only picked up running after, what was that, 10, 12, 13 years of since I'd left school. So a long time of not doing any sort of endurance. And what I've noticed by including some sort of running or some sort of endurance training into my current split just now, so I'm kind of running a bit of a powerlifting split, and I'm keeping regular runs in. I'll go into more details on this at the end, but simply I'm running and doing powerlifting at the same time, and I'm actually noticing my strength and power is going up in my powerlifting training sessions. And I do think it's because of, I don't know if it's necessarily because of the run element itself. There's obviously an adaptation process where my endurance is getting better. But see, if I'm being truthful with you guys, I think it comes down to I'm managing stress a lot better. So in a powerlifting split, you're just bench, overhead press, deadlift, like squats. Like, you're sort of repeating those movements. You're doing accessory movements. And if life is crazy, sometimes training sessions, if you've been doing them for so long, like those lifting weight sessions, it takes a lot of mental capacity to really push through whatever numbers it is you're trying to hit on that day. Running, on the other hand, is very therapeutic. You get a runner's high. You get this dopamine buzz of like relaxation, meditation, if you are a regular runner. And I think because I'm regularly running, I'm not hammering it. I never go anything any more than a 5 or a 10K. That's like my ceiling limit just now. And that's good enough for me to manage my stress. So my recovery process and how my body's kind of getting into that rest and recovery and being able to repair the damage that I've done on those powerlifting sessions, I generally think is a reason why I'm getting stronger in a relatively quick period. Now, there is a bit of an argument, like if you, taking us back a step on this point, any very successful strength and conditioning coach or powerlifting coach or strongman coach, they are always prescribing their clientele an element of endurance, like as a training split, because of the benefits that it does have for heart health, for longevity, for just just for that anaerobic sort of capacity that can be built within, and that translates over to their sport, it translates over to their competition, it translates over to their lifts. So as a point in itself, overall health and longevity, doing both, it shouldn't be one or the other. Doing both, an endurance one and a lifting resistance weight one, is a great recipe for longevity as a whole. Now, I did say there, if done right, there's a part to this where everything can be misused and abused, right? But we'll leave that for the cons bit. Now, a side note of this one, I guess this does tie into health and longevity. You will have improved body composition. There's sort of no doubt about it. If you are being consistent with the endurance side of your training, and you're also being consistent with your lifting weight side of things, as long as kind of nutrition is more or less in that 80% of you sort of being dialed in, because you're increasing your activity levels and your output, then you're going to see changes to your body composition. It is a given with that. I'm just thinking, is this a point where I should go into the sort of like, nah, I'll leave this to the cons bit. Right, so moving on, second point I've got here, improved efficiency, more styles, more benefits, time benefit, right? So when you break this down, it is an efficient way to train. Like, you look at, if you want to get really, really good at running and win first place, but also get really, really strong and win a powerlifting competition, you sort of can't do both. Like, if I'm being honest, like, it's going to take a lot to really time manage the two goals that you might have. However, if you want to just do well in both, you don't necessarily care about finishing top, then you can blend those training styles together and have a more efficient approach where you're doing two things that you love. So rather than winning one or the other, or doing one or the other, you can do a little bit of both and get a little bit of benefit of both, and consistently over time, then that'll work. This is why I'm a big believer in phased training. I really think changing it up every 4 to 6 weeks is a fantastic thing to do. So going into hybrid split for 4 weeks, coming out of it, diving into your powerlifting split, seeing how that benefited it, coming away from that, going back to endurance. Like, there's so many ways that you can chop up, quote unquote, what hybrid would be, but ultimately it's doing kind of those two things at one time. From a time efficiency point of view, you don't have to train 6-7 days a week either. You can do a hybrid split on 2 workout days of resistance training or skill-based training, whatever it is that you're doing, into sort of endurance days. Like, really, you could have it as simple as that. You can double them up and do them 2 days within a week and do double sessions. However, I would probably avoid double day sessions, especially for the longer runs or longer bouts of endurance. Like, you really need to plan that. But again, we'll come on to that in a little sec. So yeah, overall, improved efficiency. You also get to experiencing more styles. Like I said on a previous podcast, that for you to go through the cycle of life, for you to go through the circle of life and cycle it through in these 4 to 6 week phases, if you want to hit CrossFit, you want to hit hybrid training, let's take hybrid out. You want to hit CrossFit, you want to take bodybuilding, you want to do running, you want to do sprints, you want to do athletics, you want to do all these various different training modalities. To hit every one of them in a 12-week program in a manner that it's going to take you 10, 15 years, right? So doing a hybrid approach where you can experience 2 at one time, 3 at one time, depending on how your split is, then this can be a fantastic way of really tapping into a bit of enjoyment of your training. And that's the key, isn't it? Like from coaching well over 300-400 people now, the most successful guys that I've trained is the ones that have a love for it or have a desire attached to a goal that they genuinely love, and they love the benefits from that. And if this is a way to that, then all power to you. Okay, third one, by far the most overlooked one. It changes up the workout environment. Sometimes I'm saying to clients to go to different gyms because they're stuck in the same 4 walls of their training style. And within that training style, there's a lot of power within coaching that I can create in terms of changing up the training style, moving from a heavy rep phase to a high rep phase, changing up the exercises, designing the program a little bit differently. But see, if you change up the environment, man, there's no better buzz with that. every single person would have experienced this. You go to a new gym, you're a gym rat yourself, right? You're consistently working out, but you go into that new gym, you're like, I'm a wee bit nervous here going in. And you go in, you're like, oh, this is class, different equipment, different feel. That gives us this kind of new buzz and takes the monotonous side of things out. So with hybrid training, because one is usually endurance and one is usually inside a gym, getting outside and experiencing different places to run, oh, what a feeling. Like, seeing the weather's good. Even today, the weather was horrible. It was pissing it down. But I was playing that pure, like, seeing your head when you're running, the rain's hitting you. I was like, yeah, man, you fucking dickhead. Like, life's so shit. Like, you're on your comeback. Life's good, by the way. Like, that's just, in my head, I like to play the whole kind of movie scene type of thing. And it's great. It's great being out in different weather conditions. It's great going to different places to run. Now, I'm a bit of a sucker for a track because I like the sponginess. I like knowing, okay, 10, 9, 8. I like counting down the loops, but I guess some people might say that's a bit psychotic. But yeah, changing up the environment is great. Keeps it new, keeps it exciting. And in return, that kind of keeps the motivation going a little bit. So if you're struggling a little bit of motivation, find ways that you can maybe change up the environment and see how the environment may actually help push you towards being a wee bit more consistent. Okay, this is kind of like the second point I raised. It's more efficient. You get more benefits in terms of experiencing both. But from another side of that, the benefits that you can get stronger and you can improve your endurance. Now, they're great things to happen in both sides of things, but what you can also get is improved mental toughness. We talk about mental resilience a lot. This podcast is called Bulletproof Mindset. And Bulletproof Mindset isn't being like incapable of not having any low days by no stretch of the imagination, but ultimately building up mental toughness, mental resilience, that layer, that brick by brick where we're trying to build the resilience to whatever life's going to throw at us. There's no harder or there's no better way to do that in the training environment in something like this hybrid training. Like, you're doing a heavy session one day with lifting weights, then the next day you've got your cardio element. Like, wherever you are, for me, I need to dig deeper on those cardio sessions. I'm talking to myself, I'm like, man, like, I could really stop running just now, or I really want to come off this treadmill or this curve run or assault bike. Whereas lifting weight side of things, we get mental toughness, we get mental resilience in a different manner. It's like, I don't know if I can lift this weight for 5 reps. Holy shit, I got 6. I don't know if I can get 7. Man, I got 7, I got 8. These sort of micro adversities that creates that layer of kind of protection in our brain, that extra kind of film, that other brick that really helps with that toughness, that resilience. So both are really good. However, if you spent a lot of time in the lifting weights element and as a gym goer, then you will find the running element really beneficial, because let's be honest, you probably don't run or you don't do any endurance because you hate it. And if you hate it, then that's a great chance to do something, especially in the realm of physical activity. So I really try to challenge my clients and also challenge myself. It's like, man, I really hate Bulgarian split squats. But then it's then going, right, why do I hate them? Oh, it's because they're hard. Is it because they're hard? No, it's because I'm shit at them. You know what? Let me work up strength and get better at them. It's really hard as a guy, and probably as a girl as well, when you're back squatting a ton of weight and then you go to Bulgarian split squats and you're holding 5 kilos. It's really what it comes down to. It's like, man, I'm finding this is such a hard exercise. It's like, yeah, it is a hard exercise, but that's not why you hate doing them. You hate doing them because your ego's in the way of you want to lift more weights. And it's that whole game of, right, okay, let me work on it. Let me turn that weakness into a strength. Sounds really cheesy, but yeah, that's where your mental toughness comes from. Okay, on to the last point, which of the pros, and it's by far the biggest benefit that you're going to get from this style of training, is the community element. Hybrid training is changing up the class environment, which is, let's be honest, fucking great, right? Classes in the past have been really lazy, and some of the big box gyms are still really lazy with their class schedule. Spinning in an element itself is in its own category, but see circuits, it's like, oh yeah, let's just get body pump, let's just get the blood flowing. Hybrid training has sort of came into that large group PTing, and it's great to see because people are doing good exercises, compound exercises, and they're combining that with an endurance part. So as a community, you can go into this into this feeling. This is the great thing about classes as well. You go into working out with a group of individuals and you feel good because you feel part of a community. And this is what you're going to see more of when it comes to hybrid training. You've already got run clubs popping off, as I mentioned last time. We've now got a lot of high rocks classes starting. We've got like specific days and open days where you can go down to and try out or go to an event like that's designed for hybrid athletes or hybrid performance. And you're going to see more of that. And I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. So that's really there are 5 points when it comes to the pros. So yeah, like community is a bit of a buzzword just now as well, but here, like I was at a Paper Cup run club this morning in Motherwell, and see, even just at the end, like there was someone there like that was a couple of years older than me at school. I never spoke to her before, and this was first time speaking to her, and we get chatting, and there was someone else there that I knew. She actually listens to the podcast, so hello if you are. But those sort of chances that you get, you don't quite get that, even though social media, we're connected to everyone and we speak to everyone kind of virtually online. You cannot beat that in-person, face-to-face sort of interaction with someone. And it's great to combine that isn't around drinking, it isn't around something that makes you feel shit, it's around something that makes you feel good if you enjoy it. Now, what I would say in these pros, like as I move into the cons, they're all benefits of doing hybrid training. But see if none of that, you're like, I'm kind of getting those elements in my own style of training, whether that's strongman, CrossFit, I don't know what else you could class that as, then here, it doesn't need to be for you. We can get a bit of FOMO sometimes. And with FOMO, you're like, fuck it, I'm going to pivot it. Now, what I don't like about the hybrid training style just now is it's very influencery, right? It's very TikTok friendly. It's very aesthetic looking. We got all these guys and girls in great shape, and then they're posting their hybrid routine. And look here, influencers, it's what they do at the end of the day. But it kind of becomes so dogmatic. It's like, if you train like that, you're a fucking piece of shit. Don't train like bodybuilders in there. Don't train like this. And look, I know that's rich coming from me because I've been of that mindset before. But we've turned a new leaf in 2024. There is no bad training modality. Like, there truly isn't. I would make an argument. I'd love to say that every single person should do an element of full body movement pattern resistance training. But here, at the end of the day, if you're going to be more consistent doing something you love, and that thing that you love is hybrid, it is CrossFit, it is strongman, bodybuilding, then fucking just do it, right? Because the whole point of this is to get more people stronger, get more people living longer with independence and longevity to have a happy and fit lifestyle. So, with that being said, let's come on to the cons. And I've really tried to challenge myself here. I was like, let's give this from a non-bias approach. But one thing I see and one thing I notice in myself, because I have done a high rocks, believe it or not, is you are way, way more likely to overtrain. There is a high physical demand when it comes to hybrid. Now, there doesn't have to be. You can come into this as a complete novice trainer or novice exercisee, novice gym goer, and you can start with one lifting weight session a week and one endurance session a week, and you start extremely low, 1 or 2 sets per muscle group or 1 or 2 sets per movement pattern, and a 1k run or a 1k incline walk or a 1k cycle, and you would scale up from there because programming really matters when it comes to this. But when you're doing hybrid training, it's very easy to go, oh man, right, I've hit my session this morning, I need to train 6 days like an animal. No, you don't. Like, overtraining happens way, way much more, especially when people are doing the whole high rock scene and the athletics competitions. There is so much overtraining going on. It is crazy. And I'm yet to kind of release the vlog of the training I designed for me and Gillian. I gave us 10 weeks. Prior to this 10 weeks, we had consistently lifted but done 0 running. And in that 10 weeks in the lead up to that, I seen people saying, you should run 4 or 5 days a week, work on your weaknesses. But see, when I only had 10 weeks to prep, I was like, you know what? Let's take a realistic approach. Let's have 3 days that are skill orientated to the exercises that we're doing and 3 days of running. And see, if I'm being honest, we averaged 1 or 2 runs on the lead up to that, and we averaged 2 of the workout component of the conditioning, I guess, if you want to call it that. And we done pretty well. I think we finished like way above average. We finished like, I don't know, like 30th out of like 200 odd people, 300 odd people. I can't remember the exact number, but we finished with a strong placing. And yeah, like we had that drive within us to win, to finish, to podium. But ultimately, we've never done it before. We have a number on the scorecard now. And as long as we beat that number next time, that's really what matters. So really, really like kind of scale back. I would say if you're watching this and you consider that you do hybrid training, you're probably doing too much. Like if I'm be truthful, like you need to work up to your capacity. You need to program it effectively, which I think was a point I written down here. So I'll go into that next point, that it's a lot harder to program, and this is why there is an argument to be said of for new gym people to maybe stay away from hybrid and focus on getting good inside the gym first and then doing a little bit of maybe running or endurance part on the side, but just focus on the lifting part. And programming, again, is very individualized. It's going to be, there's a different answer for different people. So with that being said, if you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, you'll have the option to comment below this video or reply to the question box. Let me know what your situation is, and I can recommend how I would train you and I would program for you if you are someone who wants to consider this style of hybrid training. So yeah, programming can be very, very complex, but the best program, as I said in the past, is the one that's followed consistently. If you aren't averaging 3 sessions a week and then you design or go into a program that's 5-6 days, then look, you're setting yourself up for failure. You need to create habits around this. You need to create small wins and work on consistency, then add to it, not just fucking going toes to the bar or balls to the wall and getting after this. So programming can be a lot difficult, and the training sessions themselves can take a lot out of you. So really think about what is lifestyle looking like. I get exercise is going to be a way to relieve stress, to decompress from the day, and it absolutely is. But see if the stress of missing your workouts is giving you more anxiety, is upsetting you more, you're feeling more depressed, then you really need to modify like a realistic approach of, is it better training 2 days and feeling great that you train 2 days instead of going, I'm only trained 2 days and I never got my other 2 days this week, I'm a failure, I'm a bag of shit. No, you're not. You're just, yes, there's an argument to be said that, are you being lazy or is there more that you can do? Maybe. Or if you've never proven to yourself that you can work out that much as an individual, then why don't you stick to where you know your comfort zone is first and slowly push yourself up to that? Because that doesn't make you a failure. Like, it's so many conversations I need to have with clients that, I only got my foundational day 1 in this week. What do you mean only? Like, that one day is one day that you never done in the past 6 months. So you got your workout, you got a full body workout routine in. Is that not good? Yeah, but it can be better. It's always yeah, but or ifs, and you need to reward yourself a little bit and go, you know what, I done my best that week. Let me look at it from a bird's eye view. Could I have got that other session in? Yeah, you know what, I was a wee bit too lazy here. Okay, right, I'm going to make sure that I train on this day at this time, and this is a non-negotiable for me this week. Or do you look at that bird's eye view and you're like, no, I'm like, here, the kids get sent home from school, I had to be in the house, had to look after the wee one because she was sick. Then, yeah, like, there's always another week, there's always another day, there's always the next day forward, right? So stop holding yourself in this pure discomfort. But yeah, that's something I see as a con with this for sure. It's harder to program, and it's certainly way easy to overtrain with it, because you think you can go, I was doing 5-day bodybuilding split, so I'll just do 5 days of running as well. Yeah, fuck it. No, like, you need to listen to your body. Your body's going to get beat up real quick with that approach. You need to see this like you're doing a completely new training style, and start small and gradually increase it. Okay, next point, it can become very unhealthy. Unhealthy in the sense of the overtraining bits kicked in. It's all you know, you're like, I need to train 6-7 days a week. Rest days I'm running, rest days I'm doing my lifting weight session, but I'm working at less capacity. Beast mode, push through. And I guess this is 2 points in one here. You're gonna hurt yourself, you're gonna have an injury. And I get it and this is why the whole athlete side of things is a different kettle of fish, because they have a performance goal they're trying to hit. And with a performance goal, ego takes over, and it's like, never give up, never back down, never what, all that shit. Like this whole beast mode, I am the baddest motherfucker here and I will not give up. Even though your body's screaming like, hey man, like you blow your knee out, like we weren't ready for that much impact. We need to go back to the training board. We need to program effectively. But your head's like, nah, tape that shit up. I'm pushing through with this. Like that could potentially lead to you causing long-term impact and never being able to train in a way that you love. How depressed is that going to make you? So training and injuries and all this sort of stuff, yes, they're learning experiences. However, we should take a bit of pride in ourselves and listen to our body, and instead of try to skip 5 different steps and work on step 1, then step 2, step 3, gather information, gather awareness around what's going on. Oh, I'm getting a wee bit of hip pain when I run longer than 5k. Right, back to the drawing board. Why are you getting the hip pain? Is there some mobility stuff we need to do? Do we need to do some more unilateral training where we're really working on the internal and external rotation of our hip joint? Build strength around that, retest. Okay, brilliant, I can run past 5k, 6k, 7k. Oh, no pain, cool, move on to the next thing. Instead of skipping all those steps and going straight into, I am now an athlete, I am now competing, I am now going to try and be the best of the best. Oh fuck, I've snapped my ankle, I've torn my Achilles, I've done X, Y and Z. Like, I get it, when you're being a high performing individual and you're competing at a high level or trying to compete at a high level, there's a higher risk of reward. There's a higher risk of injury. It's the same in powerlifting. It's the same as strongman competitions. But it all comes back to training. It all comes back to the programs that we create for each other and the programs that we follow. And we're so eager. We're so fucking passionate to like do so well instead of like really listening to our bodies and designing those steps appropriately. So that's like 3-4 points in one. It can be unhealthy. You can overtrain. The injury side of things happening, and it's a cunt to program. Another point I had here: there is potential imbalances that it can create. Things like high rocks and CrossFit boxes and all this sort of stuff. There's so much going on in that world where you can be competing every 2-3 months, so you're always in a trying to peak performance. You're never really taking an off season for yourself. You're never really taking a recovery approach to, right, okay, back to the drawing board. Let's down tools because I've been battering my body with a sort of overload of high performance, high endurance, high strength training, a mix of both. Really try to push my body to its next limit. Sometimes you need to take a wee break, a wee deload, work on your strength, take a backseat for a bit so that you can give it your all in the next 6 months. An analogy I want to actually bring in here is the guy or girl that's trying to deadlift 100 kilo, right? Let's say you come into the gym, you start with 40, and then goes to 45, 47, 50, 52, 55. You're constantly PBing, but there's a wall that you eventually hit, and let's say you hit that at 70 kilo. The goal might be to get to 100, but if you go into the gym every single day and try and beat that 70 kilo, it's just constant wear and tear on your body to the point where your body's hitting its ceiling limit and going, here, we're not strong here. Something's given up. So it might be your leg drive, it might be your grip strength, it might be your brace, your upper back. So you have to kind of move away from that exercise a little bit or change up the modality of training back to the progressive overload. What I do with clients, I expose them to a strength phase. They hit their ceiling usually within 5 or 6 weeks. We then change up the stimulus where I know they want to be stronger in their deadlift. They may have the goal of hitting the 100 kilos. But if I take them back and go, right, we're going to focus on high reps deadlifts. I want your technique perfect for at least 10 plus reps on your deadlift. That starts at 30 kilo. Oh man, I got 10, right, 35, 37, 40, 45. Eventually we hit our ceiling with that 10 rep range or that 10 plus rep range. Guess what happens when we go back to the strength part? Because we've rested our body, but we've still trained, we've just trained in a different manner. Our body's kind of got this newfound stimulus to go, yeah, I think we could go for 72. And that might take a couple of cycles, that might take a couple of phases of working on. But this is why, like, for me, if we just talk purely deadlift, you work on deadlift, you hit your ceiling, let's say you hit it at 70 kilo. You then go to a high rep phase and then come back to it. You might gain a wee bit of strength. You then go to different exercises that really challenge your forearm grip, like a farmer carries, and then combine that with getting stronger at pull-ups, stronger back, stronger rows. Another thing I do is snatch grip deadlifts, just to change it up, because nobody can be as strong. Well, some people are, but your snatch grip deadlifts are a really new exercise to learn, really challenging, gets the hips a lot stronger. By doing those 3-4 different phases, that would add 20-30 kilo onto someone's lift. Back to the point why I brought this up in the first place, there's going to be a point where the ceiling's been hit that many times with all these different modalities of training, and to push that extra 2.5, 3, 4, 5 kilos, whatever it may be, there is a massive risk of injury. And the same happens on these hybrid training. Just because we look good, or just because they're very aesthetic pleasing, like, man, these guys are riddled with fucking a shit ton of injuries and tears and just pure damage on their body. It's like, nah, tape that shit up. David Goggins it, man. Like, we can run 100 miles on this. Is it the smart play? Nah. Is it badass? Potentially. But ultimately, like, we need to be a wee bit smarter, and it's very hard to do. That's why I see this as a con, because the recovery and injury rate when it comes to hybrid training is like little to none. I've seen guys do high roxes, right? Compete high level high rocks, and then compete in another one the day after. Now, yes, it's impressive to an extent, but it also opens up way more opportunities of injury, and that's what I see in the space just now. And that's great for the athlete side of things, because there's a different driver. But see, for people, I guess I do like the idea of competing regularly and being a quote-unquote athlete. But let's say I'm in the category of most of you guys listening to this. We're average Jill and Joes. I'm working on my business. I want to have a great relationship with Jillian. I want to have a good relationship with my family. I want to experience life. My life isn't just all about competing. And if you're like me, sometimes, see, doing those competitions back to back, like, that's just, in my eyes, that would be silly for us to do, because most likely our training on the lead up to that hasn't exposed us to that. And this is why I'm putting athletes, or hybrid athletes, in a separate category, because that, in a sense, is something that may be required of them, because they have qualified for 2 very important competitions, and in their head, it's like if you ask a gold medalist, what do you call it? Olympic, oh my God, you're probably shouting at the camera, or shouting at your AirPods. Olympic athletes, fuck's sake, man. A lot of Olympic athletes were asked if they could win a gold medal, but the catch was they would die 5 years. I think it's like 5 years after, or a year after. Would they still want the gold medal? And every single one of them say yes, because their purpose and drive to winning is so, their desire, that is their whole life. And that's where athletes come into play. However, we'll park that. That can be for a future episode. So in conclusion, what is hybrid training? It is just 2 opposing stimuluses training. Like, that's really, you're just combining 2 things into one. Sometimes maybe more than 2 things, but ultimately a strength indicator and an endurance indicator. That is the hype just now. Run and lift weights is classed. Run up hills and lift weights is also another classification of hybrid. It'll mean so many different things to different people, but ultimately is a breakdown of 2 things in one. Should more people be doing it? I think it ain't a bad idea. I think if you've had a couple of years into the gym and you're maybe a little bit bored of your training, see, add in an element of endurance, not going from, I'm not going to lift this, and this is a point I didn't actually bring up, to what I've seen a big mistake people do is going, lift weights, I'm bored of lifting weights, I'm just going to run now. So they run, can't be bothered running anymore, and I'm just kind of half-arsing both of them. When that sort of happens, the metabolism will slow down, because they're not sending a signal of this sort of strength training component to keep the muscle on. So when they focus on just the running side of things, like what I said in the last episode, the body's going to break down that tissue, that muscle that they've been worked so hard to build, and then they'll become this sort of skinnier, fatter version. And then they're in a place where the metabolism doesn't know what to do with itself, and they find it really, really hard getting leaner and building muscle, because there's too many mixed signals. When it comes to hybrid training, if you are a gym rat and you've not experienced adding a little bit of endurance into your weekly routine, add it in, even if it's just one day. that is an element of hybrid. That is you giving yourself the best chance for a longer, healthier and fitter lifestyle. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap up here. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bulletproof Mindset. Yeah, you know where to find me. You can find me on social media. You can find me at Coach Crossar, and you can find the podcast page at Bulletproof Mindset __. And until next time, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you on the next episode.